All right, well, welcome back. Going to give a little update today on the Galaxie and the engine issues that I've had. Like I went over in the last video or two, had a problem with the lifter that started making a lot of noise. And it's a rebuilt engine. It's supposedly rebuilt by the previous owner. It was I'm not really sure where the engine came from. I'm not sure what the level of detail and expertise they used in rebuilding the engine, but at some point in time it wiped the cam, and the lifter on cylinder number 8 for the exhaust valve started chattering and making a lot of noise. And the engine, I pulled it out and pulled the cam and looked at everything, and it was in bad shape. So I was trying to decide whether to buy a remanufactured engine off the shelf from somebody, or attempt to rebuild it myself, or to find a rebuild shop. And I was able to do that about 50 miles away from here. So I decided to go ahead and rebuild the engine that's in it, and it'll be brought back to factory specs, and it should be a really good engine. The company that does the work actually has a good reputation here in the area, and I checked some of their clients and talked with them, and they're very happy with what the company's done. And once this is all done, I'll give them a plug if I'm satisfied. But we'll see how it goes. So this last weekend I pulled the engine out of this. So I'm going to show a couple things and tell you a few things that I found that were helpful. Number one is wear a hat when you're crawling around under a car. Not because I'm worried about my hair getting messed up. There's none to worry about. But you'd be surprised how many things that are sharp underneath a car your head will find if you have no hair. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes and I'll show you where I am exactly, and then give you what I think the next steps are. So here we go. All right, here is the old Galaxie. It's a 65 base model. Originally came with a 289. It had an engine swap of the 351 Windsor. And yesterday, let's see, today's Monday, so Saturday and yesterday I spent a good deal of time continuing to take everything out that would need to come out prior to pulling the engine. And as you can see, pretty much just pull things out of the way that didn't need to be there. This one, I did have to remove the radiator and everything on the front of the engine, all the timing set and the alternator and the power steering pump. I had to pull all that out of the way. It has an electric fan on it, so I didn't have a whole lot of, I didn't have to remove a fan, but I did take the radiator and all out to give me more room. Did move, instead of taking like the power steering pump out and the alternator out, I just pulled them off to the side just to get them out of the way. And you can just take a piece of wire and hang some of these components off to the side out of the way. You just want it to be clear. Did have to go in and pull the starter off of it. Probably could have pulled it out without that, pulling it out. But it was just much easier to get in there too, everything with the starter gone. And then just basically unbolt the torque converter from the flex plate. There's a little opening underneath it, at the very bottom right down there. There's a little opening down there, and you can get to those 4 studs that are in the torque converter and there's a nut that goes, flex plate goes on there, and you pull that off. So that disconnects it from the torque converter. And then you've got about, I think there's 6 bolts all together around here. Steering linkage is over here. I had to take the bracket for it off. I had actually fabricated that earlier because it was not done right. So it's just a case of taking things, anything that holds that engine in, you just pull it out. But you can see there's a lot of room in there, and actually, in a lot of ways, it's good to get this to where you can get in and do some cleaning and some repainting and a little bit of rust repair, very minor. Rust-Oleum is your best friend with an old car, alongside PB Blaster. So it came out, and safety is like, I work by myself a lot, so safety, you can never be too safe under a car. So I have double redundancy on almost everything I do if I'm under a car. I have 2 jacks. I have 2 jack stands. You can see the jack stands on the other side of the 2 jacks. And then in the middle, you had to block that transmission, the bell housing up, because once you pull the engine free, the bell housing will be heavier than the tail shaft and all on the transmission, and it'll want to rock forward, which could damage something, I suppose. But I want to keep that bell housing straight. There might be some tricks that other people know that I don't know, but that's the way I did it, and it worked for me. So do have the wheels jacked up just to give me a little bit more, or the frame, so that everything is up about 4 or 5 inches, just to give me a little more room to get underneath there and roll around like the walrus that I am on the floor trying to do things. It would be so nice to have a lift, and I've said for the last 2 years I'm going to put a lift right there in that space, but I haven't done it yet. So anyway, so last night we pulled it. Stacy helped me, and she stood by and helped make sure I didn't get tangled up in stuff, and she was here in case something happened and think something broke or whatever. Somebody could call 911 for me. Anyhow, yeah, so the engine hoist worked really well, and really simple once you get everything unhooked. Just pop it up and over. The manifold that I've got, intake manifold, is a Edelbrock aluminum, cast aluminum. It's got these 4 little bolts that the carburetor bolts to on top of the intake manifold, and I did not trust the plate. I had a plate that goes on that with some round holes in it that a lot of people will use to pull engines with. I didn't trust that, so literally just found some corresponding threaded holes in the end of the head on the front and on the back. They actually probably are there for that reason, I would guess, among other things. Had some sections of chain, hooked it up to a common lift point, and it came right out with no problem. So yeah, you know, just lots of little details. So my plan, I keep moving around and I apologize. My plan is to back my trailer right in that bay over there, and I'll push the hoist over there and lower the engine over into it, strap it down, and take it for a ride tomorrow or Wednesday. Today's Monday. So that's where I am, and it's been a pretty busy week or so. I've kept myself busy doing lots of things. One day last week, actually the last weekend, not this past weekend, but a week ago, I spent a lot of time on the old Gold Wing over there. Totally rebuilt the front calipers, both calipers, rebuilt the brakes and the front master cylinder. Put it back together. It rides and runs good. So, been a fun shop week or two. I will let everybody know how things go. Yeah, we'll talk later. See ya, bird out.